Welcome, everybody, and welcome to Ignite Life Transformation. I'm Antonio Sosa, one of your co hosts, and I'm joined here by the amazing Gus. And just to get us going, who are we? What are we about? I'm from Austin, Texas, and Gus and I met in Bali, Indonesia. And I was just a 25-year-old kid and kind of financially lost in many areas actually. And Gus and I met each other at the gym, and he told me he was a life coach, and I was immediately interested. Said, "Teach me, Gus. The rest is history."
Yes, sir. Well, it was fantastic to meet each other. In 2019, we met the year before the pandemic. And yeah, what a journey we've been on since. But yeah, when we first gravitated towards one another, who knew what destiny would await us? But maybe, shall we start with what Ignite is, what it's all about?
Yeah, for those who are brand new and feeling stuck or feeling lost, it's something that life coaching could be something that you're probably not used to. But Gus, you've created Ignite, and it's made such a huge. Honestly, it can't really. We'll get into it later how much it's impacted my life. But what did you create? What is Ignite?
So Ignite really is about it's the business that expresses the mission that I detected all the way back when I was a teenager, and then spent a lifetime digging deeper into that. And so it's the outworking of that. It's the vehicle through which the mission's expressed. So what is the essence of the mission of Ignite? Three words: create, educate, inspire, in order that every individual may find their version of oneness. Okay, so there's a lot
That's
to
amazing.
unpack there in those three
Oh yeah.
words. Let's
Oh
start
yeah.
with the purpose, and then we'll get to how we unpack it. So, the purpose of life is oneness. That is oneness for each individual. It's the opposite of fragmentation. When we're fragmented, we're not united within, we're not united without. We create a life that is continually putting band aid solutions on everything. When we've got oneness, we cease to have to worry about the external world. So the core purpose that Ignite exists is to help people find oneness. Okay. The three main features or actions it takes is it does it through creating an environment to excel mentally, emotionally, physically. So that all gets under the one word create. Educate is the middle word with life transforming principles and concepts and insights. And what that does is when you're forearmed, you're forewarned. Forewarned is forearmed. It means that when you have more insight and you perceive accurately, as you'll find what the first mission of life is, um, we need to be able to have the insights to make better decisions. Right? One insight can transform a life and can steer it from one direction, which would have gone to instant ruin or eventual ruin, into a life of prosperity. One decision can make that. Right? And then finally, you've got the third area, which is inspire people to find and follow their passion and their mission. It's all very well to be excelling. It's all very well to be inspired, well, to be educated, but it's another whole level to be inspired via your heart, right? And that's the highest form. So that's the pinnacle of once you get through to self sufficiency, financial independence, all of that good stuff. You don't want to be sitting year in year out drinking margaritas and going, I'm a bit depressed on the beach here. There's no one to celebrate this with. You've got to have a mission and a purpose that ignites, that goes beyond your own life, goes beyond self sufficiency, into abundance, but into the spirit of generosity, the spirit of loving your life and loving what you've been put on earth for. That's the highest form of Ignite. So those are the three stages, but it's all for the whole purpose of oneness. Oneness in your career, oneness in your mission, oneness within, peace with it.
Love it, guys, and it's huge. It's something that we go from teenagers and being lost and having all these opportunities and not knowing how to apply our talents and how to apply our time to feeling inadequate, not having the right toolkits, not running the right process or mindset to really take advantage of this life and to have as much fun as possible to build a heaven on earth. Because I don't know, like maybe if you're like me, but it was hell on earth for a bit. For people who come from broken homes, low economic classes, Maybe you're an immigrant and you're starting completely from scratch. The Ignite framework will give you a foundation and a reoccurring blueprint to come back to make it your own completely. And that's what we'll get into. And the life alignment, right? The pyramid of life alignment really encapsulates where to begin. Cool.
Okay.
All right, guys. So, where do people begin? For those that are brand new, this is lesson number one, step number one.
Okay, well, let me first. It's a bit much to kind of look at everything in one hit like this. So, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'll do it step by step because it's a lot easier when you're able to see this in isolation as well as the complete pyramid. So, let's just start with, and the way I'll do it is I'll cover these up so that people aren't distracted with sort of the other levels that may interfere with focusing on the one. So if we were to take look at your pyramid of life alignment, and you probably have seen this by now. I know you have, Antonio, but let's ask you the question anyway, because we're here. If you're thinking of your particular pyramid of life alignment, what for you would be the number one area, the number one foundation to focus on?
My probably I would say spiritual and mental health.
Yeah, and why would you say the spiritual and mental health would be the most important?
With that alone, you can make a hell out of heaven or heaven out of hell.
Right.
And
So if it's not in check, if it's not in place, what happens?
it spoils everything else. You could have $1 million in the bank, but there's people who commit suicide. Even if they have all the money in the world, that's quite common.
Yeah. Particularly if they've compromised their conscience or their soul along the way, right? So someone may have aspired to get great wealth, but in doing so, they didn't understand the unintended consequences of compromising who they were. So they get to the top of the mountain, so to speak, but they've got ill-gotten gain, they call it. And when you get ill-gotten gain that goes against principles, it crushes the soul to the point where someone doesn't feel deep down they deserve it, so they can take their life for sure. But you're right. So,
Yeah.
but I want to touch on a principle that you alluded to there, which is brilliant. And the principle here is actually about security.
Mm.
So the first layer is, are you secured? And yes, you're right. It involves those areas, as you can see here. It involves intellectual. It involves your mental life. It involves your emotional life. But not only that, what happens if you're not secured in any one of these areas? What could happen? Let's say you're not secured financially. What are going to be the consequences?
There's consequences like feeling stressed, angry. So many men who don't make enough money just feel completely inadequate and kind of worthless if they're not providing for their kids, for their wife. And then my generation, millennials, financially haven't learned the lessons, haven't learned to save or invest, and their 20s are just an extension of their teenage years.
100%. So we can see just if you're not secured financially, and I remember back to when I made a very poor investment, right? I lost about 7 grand, but that 7 grand usually would be my power money. It would be my option ability money. What happened was I was now in a position where I felt I'd lost that money and I was in a deficit mindset. So what happened to me was instead of being in an abundance mindset, I went into, oh man, I got to earn that money back. I got to hustle. And it stopped making me being productive and thinking optimization. I was thinking more security, right? So if you're not
Mm.
secured at any one of these levels, it's going to impact you at the higher level, which takes you away from your flow state, takes you away from your sense of oneness. So any one of these can be holes in your reservoir to help you become more whole and more one. And there's so many examples there from living environment that could be toxic through the people you're living with, through the air that you breathe, through the water that you drink. Um, your relationships could be systemically toxic or bad habits. Your career, you may be in pretend agreements in your career. So there's so many aspects here. Unless you're secured, you haven't earned the right to go to the next level. But if the first layer of life then is to gain security, what do you think the next level of life is? Life mastery.
Those hierarchy of needs, man. I know the answer. It's getting inspired.
Well, you're bang on. It is getting inspired. So the next level up here is actually once you've earned the right to be secured, you can then live an inspired life. You've earned the right to actually focus your excess energy on what truly lights you up, what truly inspires you. This is an exciting place to be. I went for a year and I skipped this one year when I'd achieved financial security because I didn't need to work. So I thought, let's just go out and party and try everything. I wrote up my big bucket list. I did everything on that list you could imagine. And I went back and tried to do it the year after, and I was depressed. I couldn't go forward in it because something was missing, and it was my life purpose. And so it's really important you know what inspires you. So there's four elements to this. The first one you can see there is self-knowledge. Now there are so many different courses within that, but within that box, you can look at exactly what pertains to you, as in how you're wired up, your personality, your value system, which we move on to there, your values. The next one is finding your mission, and then how to craft a vision. That encompasses being inspired. If you do each of those, if you do self-knowledge, you organically, automatically get a level of inspiration. Just simply the insight of who you are, you gain inspiration. Then you ratchet up another level when you find out your life core values. And there's two lots. There's the values that you move towards, but more importantly, most people don't realize this. People have a set of values they're actually wanting to avoid, and they've got a priority and a hierarchy of those values. If you're not aware of what you're avoiding, you don't have control of your life, point blank.
Wow.
Okay,
Lot,
that's, yeah, carry
lot.
on.
So for someone brand new seeing all this, you might have never heard of anybody asking you, what are your values? That's something that takes time for you to actually define, because you may say your values are one thing, but what does your actions lie? What do you spend most of your time doing?
Yeah, 100%. It's people, and often when people say values, they actually get the wrong ideas. They think of morals. My values are being patient, they're being kind. But the truth is, everyone can be patient, everyone can be mean, everyone can be honest, everyone can be dishonest. So those aren't true values we're talking about. We're not talking about morals. We're talking about the values that guide your decisions, the meta level values. And when you know them, then you've suddenly empowered your life. Now you're starting to take control of your life because you know what truly lights you up, and you know what's an outside in injected value from your parents, from society, from your partners, from your family,
Mm.
from your friends, towards an inside out value, which is you do this because you are naturally inspired to do it. So there's a big difference. Do you feel do you feel compelled to conform to live up to others, or do you naturally be inspired to follow something on your highest priority list?
Hmm.
Okay, so it's values, and then you've earned the right to actually really fine tune your mission. That's why you're here on Earth. And we do a very specialized course for that. We help people really get in tune with their personality, their giftings, their strengths, their passions, and we tie it together in what we call the nexus. And within the nexus, we create endless opportunities for the individual. And not just individuals between bad, all right, and good. We're talking about good, great, outstanding, and delicious. So those are the categories you can choose from. Once you find your mission, you can orientate yourself anywhere in the world and be fulfilled.
That's big. And I'll say something about that, because for all the men out there, particularly, or just people who are working at a job that they know they don't love, that fuels them, there's so many people who are like, I'm doing this, but what I really want to do is XYZ. And that's the delicious category Gus is talking about, that if you could just wave a wand, paint a blank canvas, this is what you would be doing. We can teach you how to get there. It'll be a future lesson. This is just the overview of how to look at your life, the pyramid of oneness.
100%. And then finally, on the inspired category is vision. How to articulate and how to birth a vision from within. And it's not as fancy and as elaborate and hard as it sounds. It's actually very fun to do once you understand how a vision works. So had the founding fathers of America not had a vision, I can guarantee you they wouldn't have found it in the way they did. You know, they had a vision shimmering in the distance of what got them through to push apart from what they were subject to in the past.
Hmm.
Okay, so that then allows an inspired life. So, what do you think would be next on this pyramid for life alignment?
How to actually do it.
Very good. So, we might call that
Yes.
being directed.
Hmm.
Okay, so now we have being directed. So, you're exactly right. This is the more the how to. The first thing is securing your foundation, making sure that you're not having to plug up unnecessary gaps and holes in your life continually, systemically. It's not saying you're going to have a perfect life, but it's saying for those things that you've caused either systemically or individually, those are things you can patch up, right? Then you can go to the next level, which is live an inspired life, but then you have to know the blueprint of how to put it into action. So the first box we have there is life mapping. Now, what do you think life mapping is all about?
Getting clear on the big things. Getting clear on it's almost kind of like slicing up your life into chapters.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Often in life, we have something called double binds, or we have cognitive dissonance. That's where we want one desire, but we feel like we can't attain it because we have another desire. So we end up doing nothing. We get caught in a frozen roadblock, you call it. It's a double bind, and you don't know how to break out of it. With life mapping, it teaches you a strategic process of how you can literally have your cake and eat it too. And by actually going through this process, you tell your brain, it's all right if I have that then and this now. When you break your life into segments like this, you don't get caught into the analysis of paralysis. You don't get caught into the feeling that you're missing out because you realize everything's attainable. You can have everything you want, just not necessarily all at once. All right. And that does a huge amount for someone's peace of mind. So once you've understood life mapping at the macro level, then at the step down, more the medium level, you've got TRGs. And TRGs is all about how to actually take your dream or take your plan and break down a real strategic plan so that you're never lost. More importantly, it teaches you how to stay on path with your true north. So it takes a target, it gives you a reason, and it helps you break down a whole GPS plan of how you're going to stay on track to that goal.
Love it. Love it.
And then we move on to big rocks, and big rocks is knowing how to essentially always have those factors in your life put into your life, no matter if everything's turned to custard in your life. And you might go through horrible times where you go, I didn't expect that. That was out of the blue. You know, my partner's angry at me. My boss has just not seen the great work that I've done, and I haven't got the promotion I thought I would get, or whatever. Or we took a health setback. The big rocks are what's in your control. It's ensuring that you know how to continually put in your year, your month, and your day, your week, those big rocks that give you that sense of safety and certainty despite the storms of life.
Love that.
Okay, the two last steps here for being directed at the big level is setting your smarter goals and then knowing how to schedule them. So that's kind of at the weekly macro level. Okay, what do you think's next then? If we've just looked at secured, inspired, and directed, what will be next?
And for those watching, it gets better. Flow states.
Yep, it does. So if we go up from directed, we're now getting to what we call the execution layer. So
Ah.
how would you describe the execution level, Antonio?
Well, overcoming resistance in its many faces and identifying the most important targets and putting all of your energy into those. We many people major in the minor things. This section teaches you how to major in the majors And this is where the big leagues play.
100%. So now with the execution, we get down to the nitty-gritty of life. This is the daily reality. So any great dream that you have needs to be converted into a daily reality. Otherwise, it's not a real plan, right? Unless you can execute on a daily level, it's not real. So with execution, we learn about daily goal setting, daily scheduling. So if we were to have a goal for the day, but even if you can't schedule that into your day, you might set a goal at the start of the day. Man, I'm going to run 3 miles and I'm going to take an ice bath. But you don't plan that into your day, and you get to 8 o'clock in the evening. How high is your willpower going to be to fulfill your goal? Probably not that high, is it? But if you strategically scheduled your day and you know when you're going to run that 3 miles and you're going to an ice bath, guess what? You've already added into your day. It takes less willpower to do it. So it's important to understand daily scheduling. Then there's the daily execution layer. And then finally, you'll learn about task obliteration. Now, what I will say is that each individual that attends these courses will be strong and weaker in different areas. The point is, it's not to think that you have to do absolutely everything. It's to know where you're weak, where you're strong, and where you need to grow your period of life alignment. That's the important thing to understand.
Which is huge for those people who want to make $10,000 a month or more, or get the body of their dreams or their relationship. You may not know where your blockage is that's stopping you from having that. And we, in future videos, will cover evaluations, self tests, self assessments to find out where the blockage is. But this is a really comprehensive view of your life. And I would venture to say that, it's one of Gus's masterpieces.
Yeah, well, I will say it came to me all in an amazing morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. This life's work came to me. Okay, so then you've got secured, inspired, directed, and executing. What's the level above that?
Is that one the flow states? I keep rushing to that
Yes.
one.
Yeah, but that's the one you love. So here we have flow states, and think about flow states as being unconsciously competent. So everything you did the execution level, you had to consciously put into your life. Imagine getting to that highest layer where what you now touch turns to gold, but the added bonus is you don't have to think about it. You turn things to gold automatically. And that is when you're in flow state on your highest priorities, you're achieving levels of oneness. And these things are put
Effortless,
in there. So
fulfilling, fruitful.
yes. Yeah, great memory there.
Uh-oh. A
So
little
we've
bit of
got,
light. I'll pause.
yes. So what we've got on flow state level is we've got certain boxes there that help you get into and stay in flow state. So without going into them too deeply, we've got the system of excellence, which is a morning routine, generally done in the morning, but doesn't have to be done in the morning, it can be done anytime. But it's a system that you can excel in, that you don't have to think about. It tackles the 5 major areas of your life, and you can do it in as short a time as 10 minutes. And the idea is to give you a system to excel every day. So every day you're hitting your number 1 areas. Then you've got the second box is learning the mastery of the circle of control rather than being affected by what you can't control. Acting on lead indicators, using an end in mind tool, and using the pickaxe when you're tempted to get out of flow state. Okay, and then finally, once you've been in flow, guess what happens? You then produce. So basically there you get success automatically. You don't have to try for it anymore. And finally above that you have what we call fusion or oneness. So right at the top is when at any one of these layers you can experience a degree of oneness. As soon as you find your highest priorities and you move towards them, you'll start experiencing oneness. But the highest form of oneness is when you have all of these things aligned. Because if you think about it, being secured enables you to be fortified. Being inspired enables you to be fulfilled. Being directed sets the plan to be fruitful. Executing helps you be focused. Flowing, well, it creates flow. Success will produce your fortune, and ultimately, that will having all those together will create fusion or bliss. Because, like we said before, if you set your fortune with ill-gotten gain and you've compromised your soul in the process, you're not going to be happy with yourself. And you're the person every night that you have to go to bed with, regardless of who you end up in bed with. You have to go to bed with yourself, regardless. And so the point there is, if you can't sleep with a clear conscience or a clear soul, it's going to come back to root down here. Something's going to come back to haunt you. So it's better to do it the way from the inside out so you can get fusion up here. And with fusion, you don't have to second guess yourself. You don't have to rethink about your morals, all of that, because everything's in alignment from the inside out. I work with many business people that are working a full week, 50 hours a week. They're right at the stretching zone. They don't have too much more capacity in their life. They've got a wife, they've got kids, they're at the gym, they've got their social life, and it's fine balance. But what often happens is they have something go out of control at work, either in the negative or in the positive. They get offered an extended role, which takes another 10 hours a week, but they didn't understand the unintended consequences of that. So they're right in the sweet spot for their life. They're able to control many things. But what happens is when they take this on, it looks great on paper. I'm going to earn another 30K just for these extra 10 hours. This is amazing. I'm going to have a higher status in the company, but they lose track of their true north. So in taking that extra 10 hours on, they think it's going to be great, but that ends up breaking them. Quite often, I see in strange relationships with their spouse and significant other, harder times in their kids, they can't be there for those football matches, for that extra curricular activity, for the extra support. They can't be there for the date nights. They start to neglect their body. They don't have the extra attunement on their body. And before that, they were just in the sweet spot where they had everything in range. But when they take that extra layer, that extra commitment, suddenly these things hemorrhage over time and they end up just becoming in disrepair. So that was a great point that you say. And so part of Ignite is to perceive accurately what is your sweet spot. Because what may look really good on paper and something you think you've always wanted may end up destroying the very thing you're trying to seek after, which is a whole life. And so, yes, you're right. There's a season to hustle. There's a season to put all your time into business. But you don't necessarily want to stay there if it's going to negatively impinge on your health and your relationships that you want to nourish.
Exactly. You don't want to just be the mistakes all the boomers made in Gen X. I think this next generation wants to have a more balanced life, a life that's rich in not just monetary and material things, but in health, relationships, community, friendships, and having as much fun as possible while we're here and enjoying the great things. And one thing that yeah, I'll just share it too, but you see the pendulum swing so far to one side, which is what people are in my generation are dealing with on social media and pornography and fast food and sugar and processed foods, that you're starting to see so many gurus on the other side that are eating carnivore or grass fed or doing these ice baths and meditations and isolation tanks and doing all these different things that are in response to the out of balance and out of whack world. And that's what's trending now. That's what's appealing to most men, is the stoics who are doing hard things, who are getting coached, who are having a life coach, who are investing in themselves, because there's such a huge difference between the men and the boys that are not versus the ones that are, that they're going to now start looking at themselves like, dang, maybe I need to get therapy, maybe I need to get some help.
There's a huge shift away. And I think if we look back to the war generations, in the early 1900s, you had a direct response to the microenvironment that the individuals were raised in, right? So you had people trying to save every nail they pulled out of a board. They tried to ration. They had that scarcity mentality, better seen, not heard with the children. So you had them go through all of this where they prioritized material possessions. They prioritize all these things. Now, for everything, there's a good and the bad, right? They had a great collectivist attitude. They sacrificed for the greater good. They had other aspects that are more deficient in today's generation. But you have, nonetheless, you've had, as times have gotten good, people want more of what we call Maslow's hierarchy of actualization. People think, well, I don't have to fight wars anymore. I don't have to go to war and protect the country. I don't have to protect my family. All of this is in place. So people naturally prioritize more their spiritual life, more their emotional life, more their self-actualization life, and they've got the luxury to do so. So we're living at a time where we have that amazingly available to us. We've got the ability, but what's happened in the interim, and we've never seen this before, we've had such an abundance of not having to do anything, of having an abundance of food, an abundance of time. People have got a new master, and the new master is their lower nature. And many
Mm.
people haven't found out the new currency of life, which is the ability to self-regulate. That's the highest form of self-currency. But most people had to rely in the past on the government, on their employer, of their sergeant major who was giving the commands, on their spouse. But there's been no other time in history where people have all remained single and only have themselves to answer to, but they're finding out their boss isn't so good for them sometimes. Their boss being themselves. They let themselves sleep in. They let themselves overeat. They let themselves game all day, and they wonder why they're depressed because they've got a new master and they haven't learned to self-regulate. And that's what Ignite will do. The pyramid will help you understand you won't have to try and self-regulate. You'll automatically follow your highest life priorities once you know what they are, because you can't help not to. But that will want to get you out of bed. It will help you shake off depression, and it will help you get excited about what you want to do with your life.
Wow, I love that. I want to repeat that again. The new master is their lower selves.
Right.
Wow.
Whereas
That,
our true master should be our higher self, right? Or God, depending on your spirituality beliefs. But ultimately, even if you do believe in God, God believes in the highest version of ourselves. That should be the pinnacle we're trying to reach, whether that's in the form of your God or the form of the best version of yourself. But most people are not, they're not perceiving accurately what that is, so they're falling to the lowest version of themselves, which is their impulses, right? Their impulses lead them. I feel hungry, I'll eat. I feel tired, I sleep. I feel lazy, I'll do nothing. And that happens every day, day in, day out. And they wonder why they get more and more depressed. And we're more self medicating than any other time in human history. Prozac's going out of control and depression's going out of control. Mental health's going out of control and depression and suicide ideation and suicide itself is going through the roof.
yeah, speaking in conversation with other people, apparently some of these self medicating things are out of stock. Like, I think what people were saying was the ADHD medicine, Adderall, that's out of stock. And people are like, oh, I haven't had that in a while. Or it's just wild to see how dependent so many people are. And then you find the sad stories that if you look at the small towns, if you look at the kind of the corners of the states or the cities where nobody really goes to or pays attention to, the small town of thinking, there's where you have a lot more crack addicts. That's where you have a lot more people who are just vegetably now. And nobody's inspired by that, of course. People want to be on this path. They just don't know how to perceive accurately, like you were talking about. They don't know how to take control back in their life. And that's what we're going to be focusing on in this playlist, in this series, over the next few videos on how you can take your life back and build the best version for yourself. And I'm really honored to be here with you guys. It's going to be a fun ride.
I can't wait. You brought up some great points. We could talk all day about the fentanyl and what's happening there. You know, they've had an emotional addiction. It's moved to a physical one. But regardless of all that, we can touch that another day. But I want to say it was a pleasure doing this podcast with you. And I can't wait to jump on the next few videos, the next part of the series, because we're going to go in depth on a lot more of these areas.
For people watching and you stuck to the very end, you're that rare kind, that special few. We will appreciate a comment. We will respond to every single one. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe. It helps us grow and get to more people who are looking for this content. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.
All right.